This is The Cut. American whiskey, daily. Same age, same price, same day. A brand new distillery just released a bourbon and an American single malt side by side, 10 years old, $70 each, and it's daring you to pick a winner. I'm John from Chasing the Unicorn podcast. Here's what moved today, August 7th, 2026. Today's big move, a distillery that refused to pick a flagship. Here's what happened. Dancing Goat Distillery launched a new brand this week called Stillman Sonder. Not one bottle, two. A bourbon and an American single malt released the exact same day, both aged 10 years, both priced at $70 a bottle. The bourbon comes in at 94 proof, aged in a mix of Andean and American oak with a double oaked finish. The single malt runs 96.4 proof, distilled from 100% malted barley in Indiana, then finished across 5 different casks: virgin oak, ex-bourbon, Wisconsin brandy, cognac, and Calvados. Different grain, different process, identical age, identical price. Most new labels build a launch around one hero bottle. This one built a launch around a comparison. And that's not an accident, it's a strategy. A brand with no track record gets 2 shots at finding its audience in a single release, instead of betting everything on one. Whichever bottle sells through faster tells Dancing Goat something real about who's actually buying, before they spend a dime on marketing to chase the wrong crowd. For you, it's rarer than it sounds. An honest, same money, same age test between 2 whiskey categories that almost never get put next to each other on purpose. Now, today's flight and bar talk. Because this week, the internet's already arguing about it, and the argument is worth having. The debate splits right down the middle. One side says this dual launch is the most honest move a new brand can make. No excuses about age, no excuses about price, just grain and cask going head to head. The other side hears a company hedging, 2 products instead of 1, because nobody at Dancing Goat was confident enough to pick a lane. Here's where I land. The hedging read misses what a controlled launch like this actually buys a brand: data. A label with 0 history gets to run 2 real experiments in one cycle instead of guessing with one. That's not indecision. That's the fastest way to learn who your buyer actually is before you commit to a direction. But the debate hinges on something worth naming plainly because it trips people up constantly. A bourbon and a single malt sitting next to each other on a shelf are not 2 flavors of the same whiskey. They're 2 different federal categories, governed by 2 different rule books, and the split starts with the grain before a single barrel or finish gets involved. So which one do you actually buy? If you want a familiar category done with real depth, the bourbon's your play. Double oaked at 10 years is a legitimate step up from what you'll find at that price point. If you're curious where American single malt is headed, the single malt's the more interesting bottle. A 5-cask finishing program is more ambitious than most first releases in that category attempt. Honestly, at identical price and age, this is the rare pair built to be bought together. That's not me stretching for a sale. The brand did the hard part of controlling every variable except the one that matters. Now, today's first sip, because the flight only works if you understand the rule underneath it. So here's what it is. Bourbon isn't defined by where it's made. It's defined by 5 federal rules. Made in the USA. At least 51% corn in the mash bill. Distilled to no more than 160 proof. Barreled in a new charred oak container at no more than 125 proof. Bottled at 80 proof or higher. Meet all 5 and you can legally call it bourbon. Miss one and you can't, no matter how good it tastes. Today's release is a clean, real-world example. Stillman Sonder's bourbon follows that corn-forward recipe and earns the name honestly. Its same-day sibling, the single malt, is built from 100% malted barley, no corn requirement at all, governed by an entirely separate set of federal rules. Same distillery, same age statement, same $70 price tag, and 2 whiskeys that are legally and chemically different animals before a cask or a finish ever gets involved. What this changes, next time you see bourbon and American single malt sitting side by side on a shelf, you're not choosing between 2 flavors, you're choosing between 2 categories, and the grain bill is where that choice actually starts. And if you're logging pours to figure out which side of that line you lean toward, the Perfect Pour app is built for exactly that. Log both and let your pour print tell you whether corn forward or barley forward is really where your palate sits. It's available now at theperfectpourapp.com. Also in this window, one bottle worth knowing about this week, Wyoming Whiskey's State of the Union. It's a 6-year, 98 proof bourbon made entirely from Wyoming grain and Wyoming water, released to mark America's 250th anniversary, and it's confined to 2 named retailers in the entire country. No shipping, no national rollout. $79.99. Expect a grain-forward pour without the heat of a barrel-proof release, the kind of bottle that rewards patience over proof. If you're anywhere near Kirby or Jackson, Wyoming, this is worth the detour. Everyone else, this is a watch, not a chase, unless a trip out that way is already on the calendar. One more thing. So here's the one thing to take with you today. The next time a brand hands you a choice instead of a verdict, 2 bottles, same price, same age, don't read it as a company that couldn't decide. Read it as a company that trusts the whiskey to make the case on its own. That's a rarer move than it should be, and it means the real verdict isn't dancing goats to make. It's yours. That's The Cut. The full American whiskey industry brief is free every morning at chasingtheunicornpodcast.com. I'm John Schuster. Thanks for joining me. Your unicorn is out there.